Give me a mic check.
Check, check.
Mic check on the mic check. 1, 2. I've got a very special guest on today's episode of Bobby's Podcast. It is the award-winning, iconic journalist, podcast host of The Stereotypes, and radio talent and producer, Christopher J. Beale. Welcome to the pod.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's actually weird to hear you say my real name.
I know. I keep wanting to call you Corey. Can we talk about that? Let's just go into it.
Yeah, like a dozen. Well, I say a dozen to make us not old, but it's more than a dozen. Years ago, when you and I worked together, I was using a stage name. I was using a pseudonym as Corey, Kory, right. And so K-O-R-Y. You're probably very used to calling me that, and so calling me by my Christian name probably feels a little weird right now for you.
That's all I know you as is Corey Knight, and like you had like the cool, perfect like radio broadcaster like name. To me.
Well, yeah, it was fun. That was good times.
Can I tell you, I was always so jealous because people, right when I started radio, as your intern, we'll get into that. But when I started radio, I wanted to pick my cool name. Like I had always been Bobby Don since I've been 3 years old, right? So that was my singing name. That was my performing name. I was in a boy band. I was always Bobby Don. And I was like, man, he's got a cool name like Corey Knight. His real name is Chris Beale. Like, where do I get to pick my name? And our operations manager said, no, that's your name. You're going to keep that name.
The operations manager was like, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to stick with what you already picked.
Can I tell you that my old co-host from Peak FM, Woody Powers, shout out to him, said that if he chose my, I do too. He said if he got to choose my name, it would be Bobby St. James. Does that have a ring to it, or is that weird?
Yeah, it does. But it almost sounds like it needs an accent, like Bobby St. James.
Bobby
like it needs St. James. It needs a little something.
For all intents and purposes, I'm here with Christopher Beale, a fantastic personality. We go way back. I mean, since like 2006, right around there. I think I was in college right around there.
Yeah. 06 sounds right. Yeah, I was in that tracks. Yeah, I left Colorado Springs in 08, so that makes sense.
Picture it. Corey Knight was the host of 98.9 Magic FM's Night Show. He had an older intern by 2 years on his show who was doing voices. We'd always introduce our show with a voice or a character saying, hello. That was one of the...
It's Esther.
Yes, I think you named Esther. Did you name her? I think you did.
I think I might have named her, but you definitely created the voice. Which, by the way, the voice outlived you on my show, because when you left, I started doing it because I wanted the character to live on, I loved that character. You moved on to other things, and I was like, hello. It was never as good. But it was close,
Yeah. Well, and I to be fair, Chris has, I think, to me, one of the best voices in entertainment. The way he presents his voice, and he's just
you're kind.
You can just tell, like he sounds like a famous person. That's who we're talking to. So there you go.
I appreciate that. But while we're on the subject of Esther, really quick.
Yes.
Do you know? So when she pops into my brain, which happens more than I probably want to admit on your podcast, do you know what she's saying? Because to me, it was the single funniest Esther moment ever.
What does she say?
And it was when you were reading me my schedule for the week, and we had an event at Drive-In Auto Sound called the Boom Boom, and Esther saying "Boom Boom." Like I fell out. Like I just the show had to stop for a minute because I died when you said, and then finally this evening you'll be at the Boom Boom, and I died. I
think we used to prank call people in that voice, didn't we?
100%. Back when you could legally do that.
I know. Times have changed.
Good old days.
Very strict. But, for all intents and purposes, it seemed fitting to kind of have you on my show, my little show that could, because when you left, I was just your lowly intern. I was the person who got your sodas, snacks, coffee.
I don't think I really made you do that. I think you were you were my unpaid producer.
Okay, I'll take that.
Frankly,
I learned a lot from you. I learned, I think, how to start the formation of how to be an entertainer, because you, to me, have one of the best personalities on radio so far. And, I just think you taught me a lot on how to be animated and kind of being comfortable in my own skin. And it seems fitting that like all these years later, you never really got to see me as a radio talent. You just kind of learned about it through social media. I accidentally became
and
one.
from a distance, yeah, but I never actually got to like be in Colorado Springs and tune into your show. I never got to do that.
Well, thank
Your
you
whole
for
career
streaming
happened
online.
since I left. No, I mean I've heard it before because your former co-host Woody is a very good friend of mine. When I lived in Colorado Springs, we were poker buddies. We hosted a regular poker night together with all of our friends with Diablo. Shout out to the homies, and so when I saw that you two had teamed up. I think Woody and I are a lot alike in our broadcast minds and the way we think about presentation and programming. And so when I heard that they had paired you two up, I was like, that tracks. That's good.
I think so.
That's a good pairing. Yeah.
It worked out, but you kind of like split paths a little bit, and you went on to do some amazing, bigger and better things as they say in the industry. And it's just cool to see like where you've come, and like even just your setup. You look like a legit. I feel like you should be on Entertainment Tonight or something like that. Like I should be in my basement where I'm at next to
Down.
Bob.
I'm taking bookings,
I like to describe myself as Colorado Springs' version of Mario Lopez. So very low budget, very local.
You're in better shape than Mario Lopez.
No.
Just gonna say
He's
it.
got it. He's got it.
I don't know. I think the gun show would fail against Bobby's gun show.
Well,
I would like to see a flex off between you and Mario Lopez at some point.
We can
That'd
do
be
that.
great.
We can try
Book
that.
it. Book the thing.
Well, I just think I'm honored that you decided to be on the show, and it just seemed fitting because I was your intern, and here you are, kind of being on my show, and hopefully I get to do some stuff with your podcast, The Stereotypes, which I think is phenomenal. Subscribe.
Make some stuff happen.
Any streaming platforms, phenomenal talent and host there. But I'm just excited.
I want to interrupt you while you're gushing about me because I want to gush about you for a second.
Okay. Well,
because like as you mentioned, you started out as an intern at a radio station. And by the way, being an intern at a radio station does not guarantee you're going to get on the air. In fact, it usually means the opposite, right?
That's true. Very true.
So like I and a few others recognized that you were talented and funny. And then when we found out you could sing and you were engaging and magnetic, at least that's what I saw. I was like, this guy's a star. And so, I mean, I knew you wouldn't be my intern forever, but I was like, while he's here, let's slap a mic on this dude because he's good. And I think we did a lot of really fun stuff together. I remember being backstage with Hulk Hogan with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Do you remember when Hulk Hogan asked me to lock up with him backsstage, and I did? Because I've told that story 1,000 times, and I forgot that there were witnesses. You were there for that. When he was like, "Hey, I want to lock up with me, brother," and I was like, "Yes, sir." So like, yeah, I mean, we went on to do some really, really cool stuff there in Colorado Springs, and you're still there. Like you've put down roots, your family's there. You have a beautiful family. Shout out to your wife, Kat, who like we both met around literally at the same time when she arrived at Magic FM. Yeah. We met her together. Yeah. And the sparks were instant between you two, at least in my eyes. And so it's really cool that you two have created a life for yourself there. And I'm really sorry to hear that the morning show wrapped up for you. That it's the reality of radio, but it sucks. Really sucks when that happens.
Our old mentor and program director for Magic FM, I think he thoughtfully told me, he goes, you never really make it in radio till you get cut at least once.
Yeah. Always. This was your first firing. This was
my first firing. And, technically they said they eliminated my position, but still, the knife still cuts a little bit. But I'm like 44 years old now. And I'm like, well, I've had 2 jobs my whole life. I knew you when I worked at World Gym, when I managed the gym. We used to train together. And then I was your intern on the radio. And then bada bing, I was hired. So it's just like crazy. It's crazy to be
proud
here.
of you. I'm proud of everything you've accomplished.
I'm proud of us.
I really am. Like this is more of an us cast.
That's right.
It's not so much a me cast.
It's us cast.
But no, you are you still singing, by the way?
I am.
Yeah? Good.
I'm doing
I do hear you singing on the podcast all the time, and I'm like, this is literally like if you listen to this show and you hear Bobby just suddenly break out into song, I swear to you, as someone who has known this man for almost 2 decades, that is not shtick. That is literally who Bobby is.
It's like I mean, I musically have Tourette's. I just go for it. You know what I mean?
You totally have musical Tourette's, and you never know when a tune will just pop out. But the good news is you can hold one.
Well, thank you. This morning, as we were texting before we started the podcast, I was at the gym. So for some reason, Wicked was playing on in my shuffle because my girls love that. So I've got a playlist for the girls. So I was hearing, Cynthia Erivo
I'm
and
sure
Ariana
it's
Grande.
just for the girls. I'm sure
It is. It is because I
don't
love
like Wicked.
I don't really care for musicals, but I love Disney. So you know what I mean? I'm kind of in between. Fair. Yeah. But I randomly was approaching my front door and I was like, unlimited. And then, I cut it off because I can't do the.
But here's the thing. That actually sounds good when you do it. You could if you started in the right key. But you have kids. So like you walk in the room and sing something that is objectively good. And your kids are probably like.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. They're like, shut up.
Totally
like,
over you.
Do you know how good that is?
Did you know that I made a living with this for a long time?
I was in a boy band, girl. Anyway.
And you had a solo album that was fire, I thought.
And shout out to Chris because he actually played my first pop song on the radio on his show. And I think
I went to bat for you. I went to Chad Rupper's office.
You did. You did. You fought hard for that. And I think it was Once Upon a Time. Is that the one? You were mine. The memories are fine. Yep. So that is freaking awesome. And thank you.
It exists somewhere. It exists somewhere on my computer. I have it around.
It's on the internet somewhere. It's on my SoundCloud.
It was so good. I remember when you told me you had a song. You were like, I want to play this for you. I want to see what you think. I think you had just gotten back from you had just gotten
recorded it. Yeah.
Just got it.
Yeah.
And you played it for me, and I was expecting to be like, oh, that's nice, Bobby. As we all do when somebody's like, hey, let me show you this thing I made. It's like, oh, that's good. I'm proud of you. Cool. But I was like, this is, I don't want to curse on your podcast. I was like, this is freaking good.
I can believe
this is fire. I was like, you are talented. And then I committed the entire album to memory. I freaking loved it. Anyways, more Bobby singing. And by the way, as a result of that, you got to open for Brooke Hogan. Remember, that's why we were there. That's right. You got to open for Brooke Hogan.
Yes, because you played my song on the radio. We actually got some nice callers and feedback. And, Chad was like, well, let him open for Brooke Hogan.
They were like, well, he's cheap. We got him,
I mean, it was, I just never forget how tall she was. She was Amazonian. Do you remember that?
Well, it was the heels, but also, yeah. I mean, Dad's not small either.
She's like a tall lady.
She's very, yeah.
Whatever happened to Brooke Hogan? I don't know. Can we just talk about that? Like the forgotten pop stars of the 2000s?
Her dad's gone off the deep end, but brother. But no, I don't know what happened to her. But yeah, we have so many. You and I could talk for like 4 hours about memories that would mean nothing to your listeners whatsoever.
It's okay.
Bobby, the Popcast is great. I've been binging some episodes in preparation for this interview, and the condensed quick nature of it makes it an easy listen every day, but also the way that you're able to get your personality and your quirkiness across in a bite-sized format is so impressive to me, because it literally feels like I had a phone call from you and you were like, hey, it's Bobby, this is what I'm thinking about, did you watch this? Oh my god, okay, songs, okay, bye. That's literally, it's like a voice memo from Bobby in the morning. It's great.
I think I was able to extrapolate what I did on the radio and just try to do it in short form content, because I think when you are used to doing a morning show like duo scenario, and I don't know if you know this or if you've experienced this or feel this way, but it's hard to sit in front of a microphone, in front of a camera by yourself
and talk to yourself.
To just talk to yourself. I mean, I guess I could, but I don't know how entertaining that would be. That's why, I love having people like you who are funny, talented.
I appreciate that. No, and that's real. And that's a roadblock for a lot of creatives, is that it's that sort of combination of, if you want it done right, do it yourself, but also it's easier to create in community, and it's easier to stay on a schedule if you have somebody else involved, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's that constant trade-off. But it is, when you see these content creators that can turn their camera on and just sit and talk to the camera for half an hour, that's a freaking skill.
Right. And
That's
they're
a
like,
skill.
hey guys, what's going on? We run it out of home all and we're going to do whatever we want. And it's like those little,
hit the
those
bell,
crazy things.
subscribe, hit the bell. No.
Since we're talking about the process of podcasting and being an entertainer and you're a producer and you've just been a host for years,
I do so many things. My career is like the manifestation of what ADD does to a creative career.
But I mean, but it's also impressive at the same time. So let's, I think what this is evolving into is we're just going to talk shop and we're going to have fun with this one. So we'll get into the podcast on another episode, but let's do this. What's the process like for being an entertainer in the way that you've done it? Because you have kind of been a one-man show pretty much since I've known you, like since you've been a kid, right?
I think, yeah, I taught myself how to edit audio in like high school.
Okay.
I dropped out of high school, and I like to brag regularly that the only class I passed, this is true, the only class I ever passed in high school was television production.
Really? Okay.
And I think it's something about, and now looking back on it, yes, you could say the teachers failed to reach me, et cetera, et cetera. There's a ton of reasons why somebody in that position, why a child in that position would. Yes, yeah, but I did fine. And I think through that experience of dropping out of high school and having some people very close to me being like, well, that's it for you. Your career, you're not going to have a career. You're going to flip burgers for the rest of your life. Just that sort of negative attitude. It lit a fire under me where I was just sort of like,
I'm going to show these people.
I'm like, that's not going to be a thing. And then like you said, this voice, which is not exact. You and I were joking on our pre-interview call that like people say, do your radio voice. And I'm like, hi. I don't know what you want me to say. And so like I've had this voice since I was like 12 years old. And so like I understood that it was an advantage. Funnily enough, post-radio career is where I've really begun to realize what an advantage it is. There's something about radio that's bad for your psyche. But there was some radio in my family. My grandfather on my dad's side was a radio DJ. And so I always had an interest in radio. And he died when I was 9 months old, but it's like genetic, I think, especially the voice. He had a very deep country radio voice.
I couldn't even imitate you if I tried. I have.
You'd have to warp the clip.
I feel like I'm still going through puberty or something. It's weird. I mean, my voice literally is like 2 octaves higher. Ross, the hilarious Ross Matthews from RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah,
I think him and I both, like, when we went through our puberty changes, our voices just stayed. Is that weird?
That's okay.
Like yours,
it takes different. If everybody sounded like this, it wouldn't be special.
That's true.
I'm just saying. So, I got into radio. I took a part-time job in, to go even more meta, because there's a little bit of queerness to this story. I met a guy yes. Yeah, I guess we didn't even mention that. I identify as queer. I've been out of the closet since I was 15 years old, and I'm 42 now. So pretty much my entire life.
Well, hello. Let's celebrate that, as Oprah once said.
Yes, I don't have a couch to jump on, but I will celebrate with you. So I identify as queer and polyamorous, and I'm living my best life. But rewinding back, I wanted to get. I've always felt like I would do really well in radio, given that I had a deep voice, and I somehow met a local DJ, and I'm going to age myself a lot here, in an AOL Orlando M4M chat room, like just like a gay chat room back when you had to like, you've got mail, like dial on to AOL, right?
Chat rooms were life back then.
Yes. And so, no, but totally. And it was like just an open chat with just a bunch of strangers just talking about whatever. And then you could DM the cute guy, whatever, like it was fine. And so I met this guy, shout out to Chris O'Ryan. He's now producing TV and doing very well. But I talked to him about my desire to be in radio, et cetera, and he was like, well, put together a demo. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And he was like, well, here's what it needs to have, put some breaks in it, whatever. And so that's how I taught myself how to do multi-track audio editing, because I faked my first demo in multi-track. Like I downloaded some songs and recorded some breaks and sliced it together and made a demo. I sent it back to Chris, who was like, damn, this is kind of good. Like, it was like, oh, okay,
you
cool.
You just did that all on your own without coaching,
all on my own. I taught myself how to do it. I was like, I have to put something together. I don't know. I don't take no for an answer. And by the way, this is all like on a friend's computer. Like I had a friend who had audio editing software and a microphone, and I was like, I need to borrow your stuff for a little while. And I went over and I sat in his apartment. Right. So I made a demo, sent it back to Chris. He liked it, gave it to his program director, who hired me. That's the short version of that. And so I did some part-time work, and then I finally got my first full-time job. And I mean, I spent right at 2 decades in radio all over the country. But, and by the way, that's also surviving. Like anybody who's been in radio, Bobby, you were just a victim of one of these. Whenever the economy,
show me your hands.
Whenever the economy tanks, radio takes a big hit. I mean, I think when I got into radio, there were maybe these are wildly off the top of my head numbers, but I would guess there were maybe 1,500 on-air personalities in the country ish. I would guess today that number's 200.
Yeah, probably.
That are full-time, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like radio for talent has shrunk quite a bit. And then there's also the quandary of as the data that radio gets from listeners becomes more accurate, we've begun to realize that the listeners would really like for us to shut up and play more music, right?
Play the music.
Outside of mornings, they're like, can it? Like, play the hits. And so I, being good at my job, got out of the way of the music. Now, what did that mean? Bonus checks galore. Number 1 across the board, crushing it. Right. But my inner child, the creative that wanted to be an entertainer and be on the radio was
little Chris wanted to create.
Bored.
Yeah.
Bored. You wouldn't tell it to listen to my shows back then. I'm very good at turning on, hey, I'm in a great mood. Like then I'd go outside and take a walk in the parking lot and be like this, I'm so bored. And I got to a point where I realized I was making as much money as I was going to make in my situation, which was good. I was making good money. That's the hard part of this whole story. I was making great money. I was at the height of my earning in my career.
Nice.
And I just wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And so I decided to listen to myself and walk away. And that's hard when you've done something for 2 decades.
Right.
Like
and
that,
scary
it was my whole identity was wrapped up in this job, right? Yeah. And around that time, I started discovering podcasting, and this is helpful for you, Bobby. So podcasting saved my life in a lot of ways. Creatively,
like it's anyway. Mine right now.
I totally, and I just was like, wait a minute, I remember when podcasting first debuted and nobody listened to them, and it was kind of you got a podcast, like it wasn't taken seriously at first, right? Especially not within radio, because radio doesn't like competition. Boop. So I started discovering podcasting, and even more so, I started discovering intricate audio storytelling, like what NPR does with This American Life or Snap Judgment, or these shows that take an interview and write a narrative around it and really, really take you on a journey. And it immediately clicked for me what I was hearing. I'm like, oh, I'm hearing background sound, and I'm hearing narration, and I'm hearing field tracks, and I'm hearing some sound design and some music. I'm like, oh my God, this is multi-track audio production. This is incredible. And so I started making radio stories, finally made one that I personally felt confident actually letting somebody in the industry hear, Yeah. And I sent it to a couple of contacts that I had made just via email. I'm not afraid to just cold email people. Nice. Via email at KQED Public Radio in San Francisco. And Olivia Allen Price, who is the host and editor of Bay Curious, our podcast that answers listener questions about the San Francisco Bay Area. I sent it to her. She emailed me back, and she was like, you should meet me in the city for coffee. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So I took a day off from my radio gig, my commercial radio gig in Sacramento, and took the train to San Francisco. Like I traveled 3 hours for a coffee date, right? You know what I mean? But the coffee date was a job offer. And it was like, hey, no guarantees. You'll get hours when you have a story in production. You won't when you don't. It's an on-call, position, but I think you have talent, and I'm good at. She bragged about this, and she's totally right. She's like, I'm good at taking reporters with some raw talent and helping them through their first few stories and helping them find their voice. And she goes, I think I could do that for you. And so I was like, I'll take it. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
I'm still
Get it.
employed at this point. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'll take it. Damn it. I just violated my contract. You know, but like, I went back to my employer and I was like, y'all, I have a year left on this deal and I think I'm done. Like just someone saying you're good enough to try this
Yeah.
gave me the confidence to go back to the only thing I had known for 20 years and be like, I'm going to wrap this up at the end of this deal.
Wow.
And so I moved to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And yes, with an on-call job, I moved to the most expensive city in America.
I know. I was going to say the quality of living there is some coin.
Thank just it's wonderful to have supportive partners and friends in my life for sure. But I moved here and I just started hustling. I still make radio stories for Bay Curious. I've in the time since, I've networked from everything to being a radio and live event producer. I've hosted live events. I've produced a TV show. I've produced podcasts, and now I'm a sound designer and engineer for 2 of our shows. I regularly engineer Forum, which is our nationwide talk show. And engineering means that I'm running the mixer and all the sources and making sure everything hits its time cues. And it's a lot of work, but it's exciting. It's exciting. And then around this time, I promise this is the end of the story. Around this time, I also was like, this skill set is valuable for spotlighting the LGBTQIA2S community, which is something that I felt like in commercial broadcasting towards the end of my career, it was cool that I was queer, but it also, the station wasn't going to buy a float at Pride. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like they sort of put up with it, or were fine with it. Like, oh yeah, you want to go host Pride? That's fine. Oh, you need resources? No, we don't have resources. You know, it was sort of that kind of attitude towards queer people. I'm sorry. It may still be the case. I don't know. I've been out for 5 years now. Bye. But like, I felt like my queerness always had to take a background role, which I understand from a commercial standpoint, but from a leaving a legacy in the world standpoint, I felt like I needed to be the adult that I needed when I was a kid. I needed to be the example that I needed when I was a kid. And so I started Stereotypes. It started as a long form audio documentary podcast. And then as I've gotten busier in the city, the episodes have gotten a little shorter. You know, I don't have time to do a 40-minute documentary every week, unless somebody's got some scratch. So like it, you know, as life gets busier, I now work mostly as an audio engineer at KQED, helping the overall sound of the station, sound designing pieces, recording and coaching reporters as they track their parts. So it's a lot of creative work, but on the side, I make Stereotypes, and I've recently expanded that into taking my radio background.
Right.
My live radio background.
Right.
And I've been like, I kind of miss being able to just be live, to just talk to people now.
With music.
With great music. And so I've had this concept in my head for a long time of what if there was a station that had sort of the ethics and content of a community radio station, but with the polish and production value and attention to detail of a commercial station, so that it's actually fun to listen to and sounds good.
Right.
And is the kind of thing you could have on, you know, around the house and enjoy the content, whatever time you do that. And so I've just sort of was just like, screw it, I'm going to make this thing. And so I started Stereotypes.live, and it's streaming 24/7. We just got on the Radio Garden app this week, which is like, what? My favorite radio app. So basically, I'm just a creative who's still technically in San Francisco working part-time and doing all of my side hustles, writing for local newspapers, making podcasts, etc., and just sort of scraping together a living. So like, leaving commercial radio is the worst financial decision I ever made, but I think if I'm being really true to myself, I'm a happier person now than I was 6 years ago.
Look at you, all grown up, kid.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel, Bobby. Like, I feel like it's weird to say, I outgrew radio at the time that I did. And I think this is just the beginning for you too. I think, you know,
your words to the industry's ears. All I can say is, in my time,
create your own industry. You are
I
your
know.
own industry,
It's
Bobby.
kind of what I'm trying to do right now. Because, I learned when I got the chop from radio, I was like, wow, like I thought we were doing great. We left at the number one slot. We were the number one local morning show. I was like, this can happen to anybody. Like I'm not special. Like I'm completely replaceable, completely, it's easy to bring in syndication now. It's cheaper for a lot of people. And I think I was like, you know what? Nobody can tell me that I can't do this. So that's why I started
Yes.
this. And here I am climbing up the mountain and finally reaching a new peak with you on my show where we started all the way back when. And it's an honor to have you on my show. I'm just so grateful and I'm just so happy for you and your success. And yeah, it makes my heart smile to kind of see you succeeding.
And very much same for you. And like, it's been like it's been a real blast from the past to catch up with you this week
Yeah.
and just prepare for this. So, I have always appreciated your authenticity and your willingness to try anything, and you're just a delightful person. And I for one will be listening to the podcast every day.
Well, I appreciate that as we end this episode of Popcast, where we're kind of going back to our roots and talking about the industry as it pertains to you and your lens through that. Where can the kids find you? Where can we find you on all the social media platforms?
So on social media, I'm trying to do less meta, but I really like Instagram. So at Real Chris J. Beale, I'm most active on Instagram. My website's christopherjbeale.com, and that has everything linked to it. Yep. But there's also stereotypespodcast.org, stereotypes.live. Are the two websites. So definitely check that stuff out and get in touch with me. Like slide in the DMs. I'm pretty easy to reach. So hey.
I will put all those links in the podcast for where all the kids can find you. And I thank you for being on this episode of Bobby's Podcast.
Thank you, Bobby.